My name is Kendra Ellis. I'm 32 years old, and my family tricked me into a secret second mortgage in my name that almost destroyed my credit and everything I'd built. Before I tell you about the Sunday dinner where my sister mocked me for not owning a house when I'd quietly bought two, and the exact moment I shut it all down forever. Where's your house? Kendra, still renting that tiny apartment. Mackenzie leaned in, smirking across the oak table. Oh, right, you don't have one. My parents burst out laughing, slapping the wood like it was the funniest thing they'd heard all year. I set my fork down. The clink cut the room dead. I own two, I said, voice flat. And I've been paying your downtown loft rent $2,500 a month. Until tonight. Their faces froze. That was the night the laughter died and the truth came out. The night I walked away from the people who raised me and never looked back. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Drop a like if your family ever laughed at your success. It helps more people find the truth. We sat around the oak table in my parents' two-story brick home in Overland Park, the one with the double garage and small pool out back that nobody used anymore. Dad Wayne Ellis leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of scotch he couldn't afford, bragging about his new membership at the country club down the road. Finally made it to the platinum level, he said, flashing the card like it was gold. Took years of networking, but your old man still got it. Mom Gloria Ellis beamed beside him, holding up her latest designer purse, a bright red leather thing with a logo bigger than my fist. Look at this beauty, she cooed, turning it so the light caught the hardware. Wayne surprised me after his big client dinner last week. Across from me, my younger sister Mackenzie Ellis scrolled through her phone, lips curled in that familiar half-smirk she wore whenever she thought she had the upper hand. She'd been posting non-stop lately, chasing views on YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, convinced her lifestyle content was about to blow up. Hit 50,000 views on my morning routine video, she announced without looking up, thumbs flying across the screen. Brands are sliding into my DMs now. Real ones. Dad chuckled, raising his glass. That's my girl. Always knew you had star potential. Mom reached over, squeezing Mackenzie's arm. We're so proud. Both our daughters doing big things, just in different ways. The words hung there loaded. I kept eating, fork scraping the plate, saying nothing. Mackenzie finally set her phone down, eyes narrowing on me. Speaking of big things, she said, voice dripping with fake concern. How's the apartment hunt going, Kendra? Still stuck in that high-rise rental downtown? I mean, you're 32, flipping properties left and right. When are you actually going to own something? Dad snorted into his drink. Mom covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with laughter. The sound echoed off the walls, sharp and cutting like they'd rehearsed it. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't flinch. I'd heard versions of this my whole life. Always the punchline, never the winner. Mackenzie leaned forward, elbows on the table. Seriously though, everyone in real estate owns a house. What's the holdup? Bad credit? Too many student loans? More laughter. Dad wiped his eyes. Come on, kid, we're just teasing. Lighten up. I set my fork down slowly, the metal clinking against porcelain. The room went quiet, like someone hit mute. I own two. I said, my voice steady, cutting through the air. One in Olathe. I flipped last year. Another investment property in Leawood. I closed on quietly 6 months ago. And for the past 4 years, I've been paying your downtown loft rent $2,500 a month every month without missing one. But that ends tonight. Mackenzie's mouth opened, then closed. Her phone screen dimmed, forgotten. Dad's glass paused halfway to his lips. Mom's hand froze on her purse strap. Silence stretched, thick and heavy, the kind that makes your ears ring. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping hardwood. I'm done, I said, standing. No yelling, no tears, just final. I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door, walked out without another word. The screen door slammed behind me. My SUV was parked in the driveway, engine still warm from the drive over. I slid in, started it, and pulled away before anyone could follow. The streetlights blurred past as I headed back to my high-rise rental, the one they loved mocking, downtown Kansas City glowing ahead. My phone buzzed non-stop in the cup holder. Texts from Mom. "Come back, we were joking." From Dad, "Don't be dramatic." From Mackenzie, a string of angry emojis and "You're lying." I ignored them all. At the first red light, I opened my banking app. One by one, I canceled the automatic transfers, Mackenzie's rent, Mom's credit card payments, Dad's investment account top-ups. 7 years of quiet support gone in under a minute. Confirm, confirm, confirm. By the time I reached my building, the valet taking my keys, every link was severed. I rode the elevator to the 23rd floor, stepped inside my apartment, and powered off my phone completely. The city sparkled below through floor-to-ceiling windows, quiet and mine. For the first time in years, the wait wasn't there. Just silence, and the beginning of something new. To understand why I finally snapped, you have to go back to when I was 12 and learned the rules of the house the hard way. That summer in Overland Park, the grass grew fast after every rain, and I took on every lawn in the neighborhood, pushing a rusty mower up and down hills, sweat soaking my shirt, hands blistered from the handle. I kept the cash in a coffee can under my bed, counting it every night, dreaming of the mountain bike at the shop on Metcalf Avenue. $150 total earned fair and square. Then came the afternoon. Mackenzie decided to practice her softball swing in the garage and sent a ball straight through Mrs. Henderson's bay window next door. The repair quote came back at $180, and Dad didn't hesitate. He marched into my room, flipped the mattress, and took every bill from the can. "Family helps family," he said, pocketing the money while Mackenzie stood behind him, eyes wide and innocent. I argued until my throat hurt, but the bike fund was gone, and so was any illusion that hard work paid off equally. Mom just shrugged when I complained later, saying, "Accidents happen, and I could always mow more lawns next year." The pattern locked in early: my effort, their emergencies, no questions asked. Fast forward to college, when I landed a full-ride scholarship to the University of Kansas for real estate finance, one of the few that covered tuition, books, and a small living stipend. I moved into a cramped dorm in Lawrence, ate ramen to stretch every dollar, and interned unpaid at a brokerage firm downtown just to build contacts. The stipend checks hit my account monthly, $800 each, and I wired half home without fail, telling myself it was temporary support, while Mackenzie figured things out. She dropped out of community college after one semester, claiming the professors didn't understand her vision, and enrolled in an online digital content creation program that promised influencer success in 6 months. Tuition ran $12,000 upfront, plus equipment, ring lights, microphones, editing software. Dad called it an investment in her future, the same way he'd called the window repair an investment in family peace. I signed the transfers, watching my savings flatline while Mackenzie posted selfies from coffee shops, captioning them, "Hustle never stops." My roommate asked why I never bought new clothes or joined weekend trips. I changed the subject, buried in spreadsheets and property listings. The scholarship money kept flowing out, and Mackenzie's follower count crept up to a few thousand, enough for her to declare the program a win, even though no brand deals materialized. By the time I turned 25, I'd graduated top of my class, taken a junior analyst job at a firm in Kansas City, and saved enough for a down payment on my first flip, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in Olathe, listed way below market because the roof leaked and the basement smelled like mildew. I handled the paperwork myself after hours, kept the purchase off family radar, and closed with 20% down, $40,000 scraped together from bonuses and side gigs showing houses on weekends. The plan was simple: renovate over 6 months, sell for profit, roll the equity into the next deal. I told no one, not even my best friend Travis, who I'd met at the brokerage and who always pushed me to protect my wins. Then one evening, Dad showed up at my apartment, unannounced, face tight, saying Mackenzie's channel needed a professional studio set up to compete cameras, backdrops, a dedicated space in the basement of the family home. The quote from the contractor, $35,000 cash upfront. He laid it out like a business pitch, promising the channel would explode and pay me back tenfold. I hesitated, but Mom texted photos of Mackenzie crying, saying this was her last shot before giving up. I transferred the down payment that night, watching the Olathe deal collapse as the seller moved on to another buyer. The flip became a rental instead, barely breaking even after repairs, and Mackenzie's studio gathered dust while she chased trends that never landed. Travis shook his head when I finally confessed over beers, warning me the cycle would only grow, but I brushed it off. Family first, always. Looking back, that first house was the line I should have drawn the moment I chose their dreams over mine and set the stage for everything that followed. 2 years ago, the stakes got higher when I spotted the perfect 4-bedroom colonial in Leawood, the kind with mature oaks shading the driveway and a kitchen big enough for actual cooking instead of takeout on the counter. I'd driven past it every weekend for months, watching the for sale sign fade in the sun until the price dropped just enough to make my numbers work. The listing agent knew me from flips, cut me a deal on inspections, and I wired the earnest money, $15,000, from my business account before anyone in the family caught wind. Closing was set for 30 days out, and for the first time I let myself picture Roots a home office, with built-in shelves, a backyard grill, maybe even a dog. I kept the contract folder locked in my desk at the high-rise, telling myself this one was untouchable. Then Dad called on a Tuesday evening, voice tight the way it got when the market turned south and his sure thing stocks tanked. He'd been day trading again, chasing tips from guys at the country club, convinced he could rebuild the retirement fund faster than any mutual plan. Lost $70,000 in one afternoon, he said the words tumbling out like he'd rehearsed them. Broker says the positions are margin called. If I don't cover by Friday, they liquidate everything and we lose the house. Mom got on the extension, breath hitching, painting pictures of foreclosure notices and neighbors whispering. Mackenzie texted separately, "Dad's a mess, please help." I stared at the Leawood contract on my screen, the closing date circled in red, and felt the familiar pull, guilt sharpened into obligation. I called the seller's agent that night, apologized, and forfeited the earnest money to back out clean. The next morning, I initiated the wire, $70,000, watching the balance drop to levels I hadn't seen since college. Dad sent a single thumbs-up emoji. Mom posted a vague gratitude quote on Facebook. Mackenzie never mentioned it. Later that week, alone in my apartment with rain tapping the windows, I opened the banking app and scrolled through 7 years of transaction history, filtering for transfers to family accounts. The numbers stacked up fast. Monthly rent for Mackenzie's loft, starting 4 years back, credit card payoffs for Mom's shopping sprees, Dad's bridge loans that never bridged anywhere. Total outgoing exceeded $100,000, every penny documented, not one thank you note or shared celebration attached. I sat back, stomach twisting at how routine it had become. My wins funneled straight into their gaps. No receipts, no reciprocity. The realization settled heavy. I'd built a safety net for them while dangling over my own edge. That same night, I pulled the old family album from the bottom drawer, the one with the cracked leather cover Mom insisted on updating every Christmas. Page after page of holidays and birthdays, and there I was, always on the fringe, half cut off by the frame, smiling stiffly while Mackenzie posed center stage in new outfits, Dad's arm around her shoulders, Mom beaming like the sun rose for her alone. Even the professional portraits from senior year showed me tucked behind, eyes averted, as if the photographer sensed I didn't belong in the spotlight. I traced the edges with my finger, seeing the pattern in plastic sleeve. Supporter, not star. Fixer, not focus. The album closed with a soft thud, and I slid it back into the drawer, the click of the latch louder than any argument we'd ever had. That night after closing the album, everything shifted when my phone lit up with Travis's name on the screen, his voice calm but firm through the speaker as I paced the living room carpet. He'd heard the basics from our quick catch-up earlier, the way I'd finally drawn the line without explanation, and now he wasted no time laying it out straight. "They'll collapse on their own," he said, the background noise of his downtown bar fading as he stepped outside. "You've carried enough cut. The cord clean, don't get pulled back in with promises or tears." I leaned against the cool glass of the window's city lights flickering below and nodded even though he couldn't see. Travis had watched the dynamic for years, calling it out in quiet moments over coffee or after deals closed, always the one to remind me that boundaries weren't betrayal. His words landed solid, reinforcing the resolve that had started forming hours earlier, and we talked through logistics, changing passwords, monitoring statements, preparing for the fallout without engaging. By the time we hung up, the apartment felt quieter, the decision locked in place. The next morning, with coffee brewing and sunlight streaming through the blinds, I tackled the inbox clutter that had piled up for months, deleting promotions and archiving old client threads to clear mental space, along with digital. Buried in a folder labeled Miscellaneous Statements from 7 months back sat a PDF attachment I didn't recognize at first, forwarded automatically from the family's shared utility account that somehow still funneled bank notices my way. I clicked it open, expecting another water bill or HOA fee, but the header screamed in bold second mortgage approval. Ellis Residence, Overland Park. The document detailed a new lien on the brick home, $80,000 drawn against equity interest-only payments starting immediately, and there at the bottom, my name listed as co-signer with a signature that looked close, but not quite mine. The loops too uniform, the pressure inconsistent with how I held a pen. Dad's handwriting filled the primary sections, his scrawl unmistakable, from years of signing permission slips and report cards. The origination date matched the week he'd claimed a minor portfolio dip, nothing like the crash he'd described later. My pulse steadied as I zoomed in on the forgery, the realization cold and clear this wasn't oversight or mistake, it was deliberate, a backup plan in case the transfers dried up. I saved the file to a secure drive, printed a copy for my records, and closed the laptop without panic or rage, just a final snap of clarity. No calls to confront, no emails demanding explanation. Those paths led back into the cycle Travis had warned about. Instead, I opened the Contacts app and blocked Dad's cell, Mom's landline, Mackenzie's multiple numbers one by one, the confirmations popping up like small locks clicking shut. Social media followed, unfollow, restrict, mute across platforms until their profiles vanished from my feeds. The shared family cloud storage got a new password, access revoked. I even switched the mailing address on my investment accounts to a P.O. box downtown, sealing every leak. Travis texted a simple checkmark emoji when I updated him, no need for more words. Standing in the kitchen, mug in hand, I felt the absence immediately, not loss, but space. The kind that lets you breathe deep for the first time in decades. The mortgage document stayed in a drawer, evidence if ever needed, but not a weapon. Letting it hang over them was consequence enough without my involvement. Their house, their debt, their choices from here on. I powered through the rest of the day, finalizing a new flip contract in Shawnee numbers, crisp and mine alone, the future unfolding without anchors dragging behind. A week later, Mom's text broke the silence from an unfamiliar number, the message popping up while I reviewed property listings at my desk, simple and direct. "Come home Sunday. We need to talk as a family." No emojis, no please, just the address of the brick house appended like an afterthought. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, knowing they'd switched phones or borrowed one to bypass the blocks. Part of me considered deleting it unread, letting the distance hold, but another part, the one tired of loose ends, decided closure required showing up once more on my terms. I printed the ledger I'd compiled over the past days, a straightforward spreadsheet of every transfer dating back 7 years, totals at the bottom, no commentary or accusations attached. Folded neat in a manila envelope, it fit in my purse beside keys and lip balm. Sunday arrived, crisp leaves skittering across the driveway as I parked behind Dad's sedan, the garage door half open, revealing boxes stacked where the second car usually sat. I walked in through the side entrance without knocking, the familiar scent of potpourri and lemon polish hitting immediately. Mom stood in the kitchen, apron tied, stirring something on the stove that smelled like her standard apology chili. Dad sat at the oak table, newspaper spread but unread, fingers drumming the wood. Mackenzie lounged on the couch in the adjoining family room, legs tucked under, scrolling a new phone with a glitter case. They looked up as one when my footsteps echoed the room, tensing like a held breath. Mom set the spoon down first, wiping hands on a towel, eyes already glassy. "You came," she said, voice cracking on the second word, stepping forward as if to hug, but stopping short when I didn't move. Dad cleared his throat, folding the paper with deliberate snaps. "Sit down, Kendra. This has gone far enough." Mackenzie muted her screen-swinging legs to the floor, expression a mix of defiance and curiosity. I remained standing, envelope in hand, the weight of it grounding me. Mom tried again, softer. "We're worried about you." Cutting us off like strangers after everything we've been through together, Dad nodded along, leaning forward. "Family doesn't work that way. You don't just vanish when things get tough." The guilt trip started slow, building like a wave they'd perfected over decades. Mom's voice rose in pitch, recounting hospital visits and school plays, how they'd sacrificed for my education for opportunities Mackenzie now chased. Dad jumped in with reminders of the roof over my head, growing up, the car they co-signed for college, painting every favor as evidence of my debt. Mackenzie chimed from the couch, tone sharp. "You think money fixes everything? We're blood." They tag-teamed seamlessly, voices overlapping, pulling at threads of loyalty and history until the air thickened with expectation. I waited for a gap, the same way I'd learned to wait out market dips before buying low. When Mom paused to dab her eyes with the towel, I spoke calm and even. "I've paid enough. From now on, there's nothing more." Dad's face reddened, mouth opening for rebuttal, but I continued before he could. "You raised me to stand on my own, and that's what I'm doing for all of us." Mackenzie scoffed, standing now, arms crossed. "Selfish much?" Mom reached for my arm, fingers brushing sleeve. "You'd abandon your parents?" The cycle spun faster, accusations layering like sediment, but I felt none of the old pull, just observation from a distance I'd finally claimed. I opened the envelope, slid the ledger across the table toward Dad, the pages fanning slightly under the overhead light. $140,000 over 7 years, I said, pointing to the bottom line without raising my voice. "Every payment logged. You handle it from here." Dad glanced down, brows furrowing at the columns, while Mom peered over his shoulder, hand flying to her mouth. Mackenzie snatched a page, scanning quick, color draining as numbers registered. No one spoke for a long beat, the chili simmering forgotten on the stove. I turned then, walking back through the kitchen, past the fridge covered in old magnets and school photos yellowed with age. Mom called my name once, voice breaking, but footsteps didn't follow. The screen door creaked open and shut behind me, the sound final as a period at sentence end. In the SUV, I blocked the new number immediately, then double-checked settings to ensure no future unknowns slipped through. The driveway receded in the rear view, the house shrinking until it was just another property on the block, no longer mine to maintain. 30 days passed in quiet routine, the kind where mornings started with fresh listings and evenings ended with spreadsheets balanced to the penny, until a public records alert pinged my phone one afternoon, while I negotiated terms on a fixer-upper in Blue Springs, a suburb east of Kansas City, where values climbed steadily with new highway access. The notice came from the Johnson County Register of Deeds, a simple PDF attachment showing the brick house in Overland Park listed as pending sale price slashed 15% below appraisal to attract quick cash offers. Dad had fought the default at first, calling the lender daily from the landline, arguing over payment plans and hardship extensions. But when the second mortgage, $80,000 drawn 7 months prior, triggered acceleration clauses after missed interest, the bank filed foreclosure papers without ceremony. A yellow notice taped to the front door under the porch light marked the final countdown, visible to joggers and dog walkers on the cul-de-sac. The realtor, a colleague I'd closed deals with before, texted privately, "Cash buyer, as is closing in 10 days. By the following Wednesday, the sign switched to sold, and moving trucks from a budget company in Lenexa rolled up at dawn, workers in gray polos hauling out the sectional sofa. The oak dining set, the curio cabinet Mom filled with porcelain figurines over decades. They relocated to a 2-bedroom apartment in Independence, Missouri, off Noland Road, near the old Englewood Theater, the complex built in the 80s, with brick-accented facades, now faded to dusty rose balconies, sagging under potted plants, long dead from neglect. Unit 204 faced the parking lot, second-floor stairs creaking under boxes labeled "Kitchen" and "Lennon's" in Mom's looping cursive. Rent ran $1,400 monthly, eating most of Dad's fixed pension from the utility company, where he'd retired early. Utilities tacked on another $200 for air conditioning that rattled like loose change. The single assigned parking spot meant rotating vehicles. Dad's aging Buick and Mom's leased SUV now returned, while Mackenzie parked blocks away near a laundromat with barred windows. Inside the layout, forced proximity, galley kitchen opening to a living room, barely fitting a love seat and TV stand, bedrooms separated by a bathroom with cracked tile, and a shower that dripped unless the handle was jiggled just right. The pool promised in faded brochures stayed chained shut, green water visible through the fence. Tension replaced the old rhythm within days, voices carrying through drywall, thin enough to hear coughs and cabinet slams. Dad paced the narrow hallway at night, muttering about Mom's Nordstrom receipts still arriving in forwarded mail, blaming her for the equity line that funded handbags and spa days. Mom countered from the kitchenette, slamming drawers, pointing to Mackenzie's ring light and microphone stand propped useless in the corner, calling the content "Dream," a black hole that swallowed tuition and studio rent. Mackenzie retreated to her room, door locked, headphones clamped tight, scrolling Indeed for remote editing gigs she bookmarked, but never applied to, resentment simmering into slammed doors and cold shoulders. Arguments circled without resolution, Dad accusing Mom of entitlement, Mom labeling Mackenzie spoiled, Mackenzie snapping that no one believed in her, each voice rising then collapsing into silence that felt heavier than shouting. No one picked up the phone to dial my number. No texts from borrowed devices. No drive-by visits to the high-rise. The fracture held invisible, but absolute. Meanwhile, I submitted the dispute packet to the lender through their online portal, uploading the printed mortgage statement with highlighted forgery, a notarized affidavit, and transaction logs showing no activity from my accounts. Response came in 8 business days. Lien, removed credit report, updated a FICO, jumping 40 points to levels I hadn't seen since graduation. The third flip, a 1960s ranch in Raytown with original hardwood under carpet and a basement ripe for finishing, closed at $190,000 after I replaced the galley kitchen with quartz and stainless, staged it with rented mid-century furniture, and hosted 2 open houses that drew multiple offers. Profit cleared after fees rolling straight into escrow on a half-acre lot near Weatherby Lake, the waterline visible from the future deck, soil tests confirming stable fill for the foundation I'd sketched on napkins during late-night calls. That's where I met Ethan, the architect, reviewing structural plans at the Platte County planning desk, his blueprints unrolled beside mine as we both waited for stamp approval on a Friday morning, thick with copier toner and stale coffee. He wore a charcoal button-down sleeves rolled tracing load-bearing lines with a pencil, while explaining cantilever options for the lakeside view. Conversation flowed from zoning variances to sustainable siding, then to favorite barbecue joints in the Northland numbers exchanged before the clerk called next. Coffee at a dockside cafe in Parkville turned into sight walks at sunset, his sketches refining my vision open concept, living with vaulted ceilings, a primary suite cantilevered over the slope kitchen island, big enough for holiday prep without elbows bumping. Permits approved ground. Broke in April foundation poured, while redbuds bloomed along the shore, every nail and beam, a choice unburdened by old obligations. The lesson settled through those months solid as the concrete curing under Spring Sun family isn't a one-way obligation, and cutting the toxic allows you to build your own foundation. Their choices forged signatures, endless demands, refusal to adapt delivered consequences. They now lived daily in cramped rooms and colder silences. Mine delivered space growth partnership with someone who asked what I wanted, not what I owed. No contact ever came, no apologies scrawled on forwarded mail, no updates via mutual acquaintances, no reconciliation attempted, and none was needed or welcomed. The break stayed permanent, a boundary respected in absence, a door closed without slamming. To everyone who followed to the end, thank you for investing your time in the raw truth of this journey. If any moment resonated, drop your thoughts below. What would you have done at the table or years earlier? Your stories strengthen us all, and sharing them proves that protecting your peace is never selfish.